High Lord Wolnir from Dark Souls 3. Who can forget the giant skeleton? I love Dark Souls 3. For whatever reason, I have very selective memory of Dark Souls 3, one of them being, of course, High Lord Wolnir, the giant skeleton that squished my body, and it was a fun experience. Let's listen to the music. Wow, okay, before we dive too hard into more of this music, I want to talk about the beginning. We enter into this dark, what seems to be a cavern, and we're sort of at a loss. We're searching around, we don't know where to look, we don't know what we're looking for, we don't know what we're going to find, and out emerges this giant figure of a skeleton, or in this case, High Lord Wolnir. You're sort of at a loss as to what to do, and you hear that right away in the music. There is this sense of his size, there is a sense of darkness, especially when you hear the men. Right. Then as we continue on, we get this dissonance, which is causing us to feel a bit of disjointedness, a bit of discomfort, because it's not like a comfortable situation. And I'm like, hey, buddy, it's not quite like that. It's much more terrifying. And then this is leading into what will become this battle, but it's almost the discovery of High Lord Wolnir is actually the part that's truly terrifying due to his size and due to his disgusting decrepitness. Of course, he's a skeleton. No offense to skeletons everywhere, but you know. Okay, that is actually so incredibly unique. I've actually never even heard that sort of structure in any classical music I've sung in. That's intense. And it gives us a feeling of incredible discomfort. It's not laughter. I'm bigger than you and I will stomp you out. Your life is meaningless. It's incredible how a simple little vocal gesture like can elicit such a strong emotional response, and it's also really cool. You know what I mean? Isn't that fun? That's a melody, but like it's a really up melody. I mean, it's not something that you play in your car, but maybe you do, but I don't. And it's the sort of thing that really is disjointed, but somehow still melodic, even though there's tons of dissonance and flats and sharps, and it's like in a key signature, but there's movement around it that makes it not feel like it's in a key signature. I actually feel like the music is doing more movement than the actual fight with High Lord Wolnir, because this is all I remember is slamming his hands on the ground, and then the skeletons come towards you. So I think it's mostly to do with the like disgusting nature of the fact that his entire like neck is covered in skulls. There's a certain quality about Lord Wolnir here that isn't exactly pleasant to look at. I also think it's like a fall from grace type thing, because whoever High Lord Wolnir was, if he was a giant or whatever, something terrible must have happened to make him be in this sort of dark crypt, essentially, of this like forest area. And like, why is he down there? The music infers a lot about the character. So like, what's going on in his backstory that would cause him to be so awful, you know what I mean, in death. So the brass is really funny here too, because the brass is heralding that sense of royalty that High Lord Wolnir had. But then also we've got what I like to affectionately call creepy strings, when that's the screechy scratchy, serves a purpose of making us uncomfortable. And it's very common in horror music and in horror video games. And we have it here in spades. Now, obviously we have a repetition here. And so it's like, what is occurring? It's just so interesting because it's like scary and it's not empowering at all to the player. I think it really is both an environmental track and a track that elicits the size and omnipotence, if you will, of High Lord Wolnir, with the men and and then the brass heralding his past life. It's really cool. Say that second half is really uncomfortable. It's almost like painful to listen to. And I don't know why that is. To me, it's likely because of the way that the brass is, it's very like loud. I think it fits Wolnir in being in the shadows and you're sort of like, you lose direction, you lose sense of where you're going, like you're down this big hill and then Wolnir's coming up to you. It's really uncomfortable, actually. And everything is kind of below the surface, and so it feels like it's that crawling up feeling. It sounds like rats scurrying around, but they're big rats. Like, they're not like little rats, they're huge. And that's the sort of vibe I get from this. Also, we have the men that are all lower. So the lower men, there's no grounding. There's no sense of like, there's not a lot of peace. Well, there's no peace in any Dark Souls music, but there's certainly, it feels really, really uncomfortable because I want like a melody, and there is not really a melodic identity in this. We have the but it's all like really low, and then you've got the cymbals in the back going da 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 da. Then it all kind of sounds a bit distant and a bit it's just very uncomfortable. Certainly really uncomfortable because also you have now this and the trumpets. I think it has to do with Wolnir's size. There is a rage in here, but it's like very, it almost feels like blood pumping through veins, like the ox. It's almost like breathing, like, I don't know. It's really hard to describe to you, but it's incredibly disjointed and uncomfortable. I think what it is that it's not doing anything. You know, it's just sort of existing. Oof. In a way, I am relieved that that is over because that is very intense. And if you look at the lore, it actually makes a lot of sense because it says, once upon a time, each of the rightful lords of Carthus were bestowed crowns judiciously until Wolnir brought all of them to their knees. So in a way, with that choir, I think that does symbolize Wolnir's capacity for death and destruction. Conquered most kingdoms known to their people. Thus, the crowns of Carthus became one, and Wolnir the one High Lord. Wolnir eventually succumbed to the abyss, and in fall falling, was gripped by a fear of true darkness. So he pleaded to the gods for the first time. He found some semblance of comfort from a holy sword and 3 armlets stripped from the corpses of clerics. Wolnir sentenced countless souls to gruesome deaths, keen to outlive them all. I mean, we hear the destruction, we hear his capacity for terrible things, we hear the sort of internal gruesome sense of fear and worry and concern for the darkness. I'd say it's very, very visceral. It's one of the times I've been most uncomfortable listening to Dark Souls and FromSoft music, which I don't normally get, but that was something. As always, if you like this sort of stuff, I'm always covering FromSoft music in one way or another. I stream on Twitch. VODs are uploaded to Marco Meatball VODs. And as always, thanks a ton, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.